The Biden transition team is already hard at work putting President Trump isn't backing down from his legal challenges against the election results. Leslie Sanchez and Antjuan Seawright are here to talk about all of this with us. Leslie is a CBS News political analyst and Republican strategist, and Antjuan Seawright is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Really nice to have you guys here. The Biden transition team is hitting the ground running today. The president-elect and vice president-elect have their first meetings with their COVID-19 advisory board. And then Joe Biden will address the country about his plan to take on COVID-19. In his speech on Saturday, Biden said it was a top priority. Here's some of what he had to say.
Our work begins with getting COVID under control. We cannot repair the economy, restore our vitality, or relish life's most precious moments, hugging our grandchildren, our children, our birthdays, weddings, graduations, all the moments that matter most to us until we get it under control.
All right, Antjuan, this one's for you. The Biden team putting a lot of emphasis on the pandemic. This is where they're choosing to start. It may be pretty obvious, but there may be other reasons. Why start here?
Well, this is the number one issue that is on the hearts and minds of Americans, whether you're Democrat, Republican, whether you participated in the election or not. This virus has literally cut through the fabric of who we are in this country, and it is the responsibility of the leader of the free world to wrap their arms around a response to this virus. Unfortunately, the last administration has decided to sweep things under the rug as it relates to coronavirus, and as a result, the country and even parts of the world are tripping up based on our missteps in handling this coronavirus.
Leslie, we haven't yet heard from President Trump himself since Joe Biden was projected to win the election, except for Twitter. He's been retweeting a bunch of stuff. He was seen golfing both Saturday and Sunday, but we're learning that on top of legal challenges, he plans to hold campaign-style rallies as he fights the election results. What's interesting to me, Leslie, and I want to know what you're hearing from your sources within the GOP, there are some who are saying, look, this wasn't a full-on repudiation of President Trump. The president still got some 70 million votes. Republicans were able to pick up some seats in Congress. If it had been a blowout, the way some had suggested, if the Senate had flipped from Republican to Democrat, that might have made it harder for Republicans to continue to embrace Trumpism. But do the results give Republicans hope that there's still a path forward? And if the president keeps doing these rallies, maybe they glom onto that or they attach themselves to that, and this isn't over yet.
Vlad, that's probably the most important question, and probably the hardest even for, I would say, parts of the Republican Party, establishment Republicans, not even talking about the Democrats, but Republicans to understand about this party. This is Trump's Republican Party. His support among the Republican base is 93%. And for all the Lincoln Project and Never Trumpers and people that were discounting and trying to throw up those, those horrendous ads, many of which, had a degree of veracity in them, it emboldened this populist base, and he increased from 63 million to over 70 million voters who support his style of politics, and we can't ignore that. That's extraordinary for the moment that we're in. If you look at a lot of those battleground states that flipped, that flipped to the Democrats this time around on the presidential level, they were small in the margins of those swing counties, and a lot of them, some women, particularly Republican women or independent women, voted for the third-party candidate this time. But it's mercurial. It's moving back and forth. So we're learning a lot about what Republicans, the new realignment of the Republican Party, is responding to. The president still understands the pulse of that, and for all intent and purposes, he's the head of that. So the conversations in the GOP right now are, what does the next iteration of the GOP look like? Who's the standard bearer? A lot of people still believe it's going to be Donald Trump, and those are things that are going to be determined, kind of moving out over the next several months, and certainly leading to the midterms.
Leslie, could some of these rallies also be simply about fundraising? It's pretty expensive to wage hundreds of legal battles across the country.
It's interesting, Anne-Marie, if you think about it this way. So when the president was being impeached, it was the highest amount of fundraising the GOP had seen. You'd certainly seen within the Republican, the Trump fundraising apparatus. You can see a lot of that now. Attacked by the establishment, attacked by the media, attacked by a broken Washington, emboldens this president and will continue to do so. So there could be a part of that. But there is a dramatic undercurrent of half of this country who is very concerned about a change of leadership. They came out in dramatic numbers, and now you're seeing the rise of conservative women that are going to Congress, almost doubling that, if not more than that. A lot of ethnic minorities that are conservative going to Congress on the state level, still holding and maintaining control of the Senate so far that we've seen. Vlad mentions this in the point. A true referendum, a true kind of mandate would have been like LBJ, right? It would have been all houses, flipping them to Democratic control. You don't see that. And that's why I think we have to be very careful how we really understand where the mindset of the country is. And it's not just, to the point before, on just coronavirus. If you even look at the exit polls, it's about the economy and keeping it strong, getting people back to work. And the vaccine is a very dramatic part of that.
And Anne-Marie and Leslie, we Democrats flipped 5 states in this election. The number margin from a popular vote is over 4 million now and growing. So while I agree with you, there is a conversation saying this was not a mandate election. But if you look at numbers in places where Democrats won this election and did not win in the previous election, and you couch that with what happened in the 2018 midterms, then one could argue, at least Antjuan's going to argue, that this was a very handsome victory for the Democrats from a presidential standpoint. And going back to the point about the rallies, here's the danger part about the rally. 250,000 plus people have died in this country because of the coronavirus. Somewhere close to 8 million people have had or have the virus. When the president holds these rallies, those numbers continue to grow. People die, people get sick. You take that, couch it with Joe Biden, the president-elect, who's putting together a task force of experts and healthcare officials that he's going to listen to in order to get a response around the virus, and he's not even there yet. And so what that says to me is, you show me your agenda, show me your priorities, I show you what you value. The president wants to do rallies, Joe Biden wants to wrap his arms around this virus. That is a big difference, and that is a full display of the two different type of leaders and what's important to them.
Leslie, let's just ask you a question about this this legal strategy that the president and folks like Rudy Giuliani are pursuing. There's a tweet, and there is always a tweet, and I want to read it to our viewers here from President Trump back in February of 2016. Here's what it says. Based on the fraud committed by Senator Ted Cruz during the Iowa caucus, either a new election should take place or Cruz result nullified. The reason I bring that tweet up is because we've seen this before, right? And it's certainly if the president wants to challenge the results and he wants to challenge some of the voting, that's his right. And the legal process will be what it is. But is this less about actually changing the results of the election and more about continuing to rile up the base, so that when he does take it on the road again, he can paint himself as the victim? A lot of what President Trump has done throughout the course of his presidency is paint himself as a victim. It's the left wing, it's the media's fault, it's China's fault, it's this, and so by doing this, he can go on the road, he can whip up his base, he can say, look, I gave it a great fight. 70 million of you voted for me, but, because of the media and because of everybody else, I lost, and here's the reason why.
It's such a tortured question and response, Vlad, because, in so many cases, Trump causes these problems himself, right? There's a consensus within, among many Republicans. I mean, this is a doing of Trump entirely. His style, it just had he just tapped it down and focused on what we would call traditional leadership, we wouldn't be in this situation. That being said, from what I am hearing, there is a firm belief that there are bad actors involved in some of these particular states that went to Vice President-elect Biden, and they want to expose that, really investigate that to the extent that they can. And if they can present evidence and move forward and take it to the courts, then they have every right, as you said, to do so. And that's what the president's going to do. What I'm hearing is that he's going to exhaust that to the extreme and ensure that if there are bad actors, that it's illuminated and people understand that's what it is. So that is what I'm hearing that he wants to do there. Whether it changes the outcome, I don't think you're seeing consensus that that will be the case. But that's where we see that the president's going. And there's many people, whether Republican or Democrat, that want to see that done. And that's why we say this is not over in that sense. It's almost its own world in terms of the worldview perspective of where that line of thinking is. I don't think it's the mainstream, but there's many people who just want to ensure that this was done fairly, and that's what's driving that action.
All right, Leslie Sanchez and Antjuan Seawright, always great to have you both. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.